Good morning. Welcome to this week's negotiation nugget, all on the power of a beginner's mind in negotiation. Now, beginner's mind, what does that mean? What is that focused on? It's about having an opportunity to look at the situation that you're in through a perspective of never experiencing it before, taking a beginner's mind to the situation. Now, if you've been negotiating with partners and suppliers and vendors over a number of years, it's easy to get comfortable in thinking that you know them, you know the situation, you know their business. And what I want to talk about this morning in this next 9 to 10 minutes is really about how you can miss information if you are not putting a beginner's mind onto that negotiation. So in these next few minutes, I'm going to talk through 5 key areas that I want you to take some time to focus on the next time you are going into a negotiation with an existing counterparty that you know well, that you've already had time interacting with, that you are familiar with, that you are aware of their business, and see whether or not there is new information that you can uncover and use and leverage within your organization because you've applied a different lens to your viewing of that negotiation and that interaction. So to pull up the 5 key areas that I'm going to take you through is 1 around assumptions and preconceptions. Now, we make a lot of assumptions around the counterparty that we're going to negotiate with when we already know them. We've interacted with them on perhaps a day-to-day basis, a interaction where it's not a negotiation at the table environment, but in the day-to-day operations of delivering the program of work or the product or services that you have agreed upon. Now, what that gives you is perhaps a baseline of information around the individual, how they operate, what ways of working that they are aligned to. But we can't go in assuming that all of that every single time is exactly the same. We really need to think about in what ways could the assumptions and preconceptions that we've had about the individual have changed. Have their environment changed? Has their role changed? Have their responsibilities changed? And what are we assuming about that individual, the business? And is there anything that if I was to go in without any assumptions, what new information would I allow myself to find? So in the first instance, I want you to question, what preconceptions do I have about the individual? What preconceptions do I have about the environment? And what preconceptions do I have about the way the negotiation is going to go and what I perhaps would consider to be a normal interaction because it's a familiar party. So start first and foremost to question those assumptions and preconceptions around what you think the other party will allow you to do or not to do. So first thing is have that open-mindedness, let go of any biases that you have towards them, the situation, the business, and go in with the view that if I was to avoid making assumptions, what new information might I gather? The second one is to look at the changed circumstances, and it's a recognition that the circumstances within which you are negotiating change every single time. So even if you're negotiating with the same individual, the same business over the same levers in the deal, the circumstances have changed because you've learned something from the last time you interacted with them and they've learned something from you. So even if you're negotiating with the same person, same business, it's actually a different negotiation, very unique, very new to the environment that you may have considered yourself in, because actually everyone's learned something different from the last time, so that the negotiation you're going into is going to be different because they're now using that new learning to negotiate with you more effectively. So recognize that there is an evolving context, and every single negotiation you go through, there will be an evolving context. Consider that the market may have changed the last time that you interacted with that counterparty. What have been the market conditions that have changed? And has there been any industry dynamics that have changed? As a result of that, have the needs and priorities of the individual and the business that you're negotiating with also changed? And if you can start to then look at going, okay, well, what's changed in their needs, their priorities, and how might I need to consider this deal differently? Again, will have you being able to plan, predict, and foresee what they might come up with by having that thinking around, okay, beginner's mindset, what else has changed? Also, moving on to individual personalities, I want you to recognize that we are not the same people we were yesterday or the day before or the day before that. If you have a growth mindset and an orientation towards growth, you're absorbing new information, the application of new knowledge is being put into practice. And as an individual, you are growing and evolving. And therefore, your personality is changing. I certainly know that how I was at the age of 20 versus how I am now in my 40s is a very different persona. And that's through growth, experience, wisdom, an application of all of the insights that I've developed over years in my career. So I've changed as a person. So the mistake that other people can make is to assume the person that I was 5 years ago is the person that I am now, or the person that I was even 6 months ago is the same person that I am now. And I think if you can go in with the mindset that the individual that you're negotiating with has not changed or has not grown or has not evolved, again, you're missing the opportunity to learn something new about them. So recognizing that individual personalities change over time, they will have new perspectives. So how can you really get under the skin and understand their new perspectives? Actively listen, take the time to take any preconceptions of who you think they are out of the way, pay attention to what they're saying, get curious, build rapport, and ask questions, seeking to understand them more clearly, seeking to assume that they have changed, that they have grown and they have evolved will actually allow you to apply a beginner's mindset, because now you're dealing with a new person in front of you, even if they are the same physical body, actually are allowing yourself to see them through a fresh perspective. Which brings me on to the fresh objectives and goals. It's easy again to assume that the objectives and the goals of the individual and the organization are still the same. If you've been in a negotiation over a number of months and you're trying to close things out, don't assume that the dynamic of the environment is the same as it was when you started the negotiation. So it's really important to zoom back out, to get yourself out of the detail, pull yourself up and ask whether or not the current motivations of the individual and the business that you're negotiating with are actually the same. Have they changed? Are there any different desired outcomes to the ones that were initially started with? And when you can start to ask questions around their objectives and their goals, what it allows you to do is explore in alignment with those. The worst mistake you can make is assume that their objectives and goals are exactly the same and continue with an assumption of I know, without applying a beginner's mind to the context and ensuring before you get into the nitty-gritty that right from the outset you're double checking, you're aligning. These are the objectives. Is that correct? What else is there that we're looking to achieve from this negotiation and this deal that we're looking to partner and create together? What else can we be assured that we're aligned on before we get into the nitty-gritty? And then the final one I want you to think about when you're applying a beginner's mind in negotiation is, what opportunity is there for me to learn? And what else can I learn about the individual, the environment, and the business that I'm negotiating in? So taking a continuous growth and a continuous improvement mindset to this. Reflect on the past negotiations that you've had with that individual and business. How have they gone? What did you learn from the last time you negotiated with them? Was there new information you gathered? How did that inform the strategy you should apply in the way you should negotiate this time? Think about ways that you can sharpen the saw when it comes to your negotiation skills, and use the opportunity in each negotiation to experiment and refine your skills. The worst thing we can do, as I said, is to assume that we've learned everything we can learn that there's nothing more to gain from sharpening the saw, because when you use it, it will get blunt very, very quickly. So spend the time taking each opportunity to negotiate with this counterparty that you've negotiated with for years with a beginner's mindset to say, what can I learn this time? And that way, when we're getting new information, instead of it feeling like a surprise or something that makes us uncomfortable, if it brings new information to the table, it's allowing us to say, aha, there's an opportunity for me to learn. What did I learn about what changed in their perspective? What did I learn about who they've become? What did I learn about the circumstances? And how can I take that opportunity to inform my planning, my preparation, and my opportunity to create meaningful value with that counterparty more effectively? So that brings me to the end of this negotiation nugget. And I want to just leave you with the opportunity to recognize that having a beginner's mindset is absolutely critical in negotiation, because we can leave a significant amount of value on the table if we don't allow ourselves that opportunity to come with a beginner's mind. So good luck with all your negotiations. Apply a beginner's mind, and I'll look forward to seeing you again in a week's time with another negotiation nugget. Have a great week.